Hey everybody. I have had the most technically difficult time trying to record this video. My initial plan, because I didn't get a chance to record last week, was to just go ahead and go live. And I thought that would be a quicker, easier way to do things. It was not. So I'm still recording this video. It's going to be a little wild and woolly because I'm flustered now. I've got a hot spot on my forehead from the lights in my room, and I'm a little stressed out from trying to go live for more than an hour and it not working out. So I'm going to relax, relate, and release now and get going. Hi, this is Three of Skeins Knitting and Crochet Podcast, and I am Lisa. I'm going to start with my current project. I'm working on the Tolsta Tee. I really like it. I think the designer's name is Rebecca Clow, Clow. Great pattern, beautifully written, easy to follow. And I like that she gives a lot, well, not a lot, but she gives some tips and tricks for customizing it to fit you better. One of the things I'm doing is I'm including vertical darts. Let me see if I can hold this up without knocking my mic over. So I'm trying a microphone because last week my sound was kind of low. So I think I got about 4 inches added to the bottom of this shirt in the last week or two. Great, because I'm working at a pretty fine gauge. I'm working on 3.75 needles with this cotton. Look at that. I love this fabric. So I had gotten to the point where, according to the pattern, I could have started doing the hem, but it was feeling a little too short to me, so I tried it on and it was too short for my taste. So to figure out what the best length for me would be, I got a shirt that I like that's also a raglan style, and I just measured from the tip of the armhole to the hem on that shirt. And then I was like, okay, instead of the length the pattern suggested, I'm going to go with 14 inches for mine. And then I'm going to do another, let's say another inch and do a turned hem. And then my shirt will be, at least the body will be finished, and I'll just have a little bit of work to do on the sleeves. So that's something that you might want to think about. Um, you want to be able to go beyond the pattern. Just because the pattern says knit until the body is XYZ length doesn't mean that that's going to be the appropriate length for you. I have a long torso, so I really did need to try it on. And when it looked a little too short to me, my try-on confirmed it. And the shirt that I ordinarily wear and like the length also told me I needed to go another 2 inches. So I'm at the point now, I think I'm at about 11 inches. So no, I just got to 12 inches the other day. I got to 12 inches. I'm going to go 2 more inches to 14. So I will have the length that I really like to wear my shirts in. And my yarn is Universal Yarns. Actually, it's distributed by Universal. It's actually a Fibra Natura yarn, and it is called Radient Cotton. I believe it's like 203 yards per skein. So I just tied on the fourth skein. I have 5. So if I don't finish it completely with 4 skeins, I will have to start a 5th skein to get the sleeves done. So that is my Tulsa tee. Love it. If you want to try it out, I think it would be great in any kind of yarn because um, I think it was originally written for wool, but it's working just fine in my 100% cotton. The next thing I wanted to share with you guys is that I had bought some cable needles. I've been knitting for a while. I have cable needles, but I don't really have any cable needles that I'm happy with. They all have features that I'm not really crazy about. So I just cast on a swatch to try out my new cable needles with. Now, as cable needles go, they were both fine, but I like working with one a little bit more than working with the other. So let's start with these. These are my Fox and Pine spiral cable needle. What I liked best about this needle is that once you get your stitches on it, you can hang it to the back or to the front of the work. I just flipped that rather carelessly. Or to the front of the work. And it stays out of the way. So if I'm not using those stitches right now, I can just, get in there and knit without the cable needle actually being in my way because it's not a stick sticking out of my work. That was pretty cool. The drawback for this one, at least for the way I knit, what I typically do is I will put my stitches that I'm gonna knit out of order onto the cable needle and I will knit them directly off the cable needle without putting them back on the holding needle. You can't really do that with this because there's not really, at least for me, there isn't enough tip there to work directly off. So I actually have to transfer the stitches onto the cable needle, hold the stitches either to the back or to the front, depending on what I need to do, and then work them, then put them back onto the other needle so I can work them with my main needle. Now, I tried that for a while. After I got used to it, it wasn't bad at all. I really like that this is a metal needle because my yarn just slipped on and off very, very easily. This needle is the Prim Yoga Cable Stitch Needle. Now, I'm going to have to try these needles again because this needle is on a wire. It's about 8 inches long. Overall, I kind of like the way it worked. I like that it was bent in this U shape because it was easy to pick up my stitches and I can, because it's on this wire and it's very, very flexible, I can bend it to whatever shape I like. So I kind of liked it like this with my tips uneven because I could then use one to pick up the stitches. I could hang it off the work on the U so it's out of my way. And then when I was done, when I was ready, I could knit off of, there was enough stick on here that I could knit directly off the needle. The only sticking point was that it sticks. The wire that connects the two needle tips is covered with a kind of slightly sticky, rubbery coating. And I don't mean sticky in the way that it feels like it leaves something on your hand. It's not sticky like that. It's just that the yarn doesn't flow very nicely on this needle. And I think it was because of the yarn I used for my testing swatch. This is an acrylic and wool blend. So to be fair, I'm going to try it again on a 100% wool because I think, sometimes if you use acrylic yarn with plastic needles or acrylic, even acrylic needles, it's a sticky experience. I think that was what was happening. This yarn was really sticky on this needle. If it wasn't sticky, this would probably be a favorite of mine, but I'm definitely going to try it out on something slippery and wool. So I might end up using this when I want to make cables in like a cotton fabric or 100% wool. But I will have to try it out on wool first to see it still feels, if it's still too sticky for me. But I think depending on how you like to knit, either one of these is a good bet, except that this is sticky. So if you have, I'm going to try this with alpaca because alpaca is very slippery. So I think that this would be great for something like working in alpaca. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to talk to you guys about was this. I I don't know if you guys have been following, but for those of you guys still just joining this little journey I'm on, I created a personal curriculum for myself. And this is one of the books that I am studying right now. It's called Mary Thomas's Knitting Book, and it's an older book by a writer named Mary Thomas. Now, this book is from initially published in 1938. Let's start there. So it was a different world at the time. And my edition, though, was republished in 1972. That's kind of what surprised me because I'm working my way through this book, finding a lot of interesting things, good tips and tricks. I expected terminology to be different. I expected the tone to be different because, when you work with older books, people said things in the past that are surprising now. But what really took me aback was this right here. Let's see if I can find it. I put in a bookmark. Let me actually use the bookmark. Check that out. You see how it says colored knitting? Uh, I don't know why this child was depicted this way. When I looked at it, when I was looking at this paragraph, okay, this little section is all about color work. Let's start there. And she describes something that she calls jazz knitting. Uh, it's a scrap technique where you have different width stripes, bouncing back and forth between whatever different yarns you have. And I think this illustration is here because of the pun on colored knitting. So what I discovered in my old book was a nice little piece of casual racism that was just plopped in there. It was like I wrote a blog post about it, and I'll include a link to the blog post if you guys want to read it. But it was like finding a time capsule from Jim Crow America. Why is this child depicted like this and not in any normal skin tone you could ever find on Earth? Why is this child naked? Why is this child endangered? Um, there's a snake coiled around. It's the child's ball of yarn. If you look at the figure just above, you have two very white people dancing. And most of the other illustrations in the book are just pleasant, fun. The people are happy. And the illustrations are clearly meant to be funny. Yeah, here's an example of a sweater that's too tight. This is a funny description of a cast off. So the tone of these type of illustrations that are not directly teaching you how to do things or showing you a technique, it's meant to be funny. And the next thing from the casual racism time capsule I found was this. She describes um, what I guess is a picot bind off as treasure teeth knitting, as a treasure teeth hem. And this picture directly references British colonialism. The figures in the illustration are what they used to call bearers. This was an incredibly exploitative method of labor extraction where people were worked ridiculously for almost no pay. And what strikes me was when you compare what this refers to historically to how it's positioned in his book, colonial extraction is, a subject of humor. I mean, there's even a child depicted here. And this illustration is supposed to be cute and funny. So this is just a PSA. Know that when you use old books, you're going to find old attitudes, old thoughts, and it just feels closer to the surface now because everything old is new again. And there are people trying to drag us back to those times. Mary Thomas's knitting book. Good on knitting, terrible on life. So I was thinking about it and I was like, oh, do I really want to continue with this book? But I had to just come to the conclusion that I'm going to continue taking what I can out of this book because that's what I always have to do. The country I live in that has always had hostile architecture built against me. I've always had to take what I can use and work around or go under or go over the rest. So that's what I'm going to do with regard to this book. And the last thing I wanted to talk to you guys about was the new show all about knitting and crochet, A Game of Wool. I'm going to start with what I liked about it. I did like that they don't have the segregationist attitude towards knitting and crochet that we have here in the United States. You know, did it's like you shouldn't cross the streams like in Ghostbusters. Knitters knit, crocheters crochet, knitting is for clothes, crochet is not, quote unquote. Knitting is cool, crochet is ugly, blah, 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 blah. Most of the knitters in A Game of Wool both knit and crochet to one degree or another. Some are strongly more crocheters, some are strongly more knitters, but everything has its place and its time, and there's no negative connotation to either knitting or crocheting. And there's no reason that knitting and crocheting can't coexist in the same person or in the same garment. So that I liked. Um, there's some issues with this show. I think there's poor game design is one of the issues because one of the issues I have with it is that the more I watch, and I've been able to watch the first four episodes, the more it seems like these are not necessarily challenges set up by people who know about yarn, who are interested in design. These seem like challenges that are designed to show off the sponsor products, particularly the yarn. The first challenge I think everybody has heard about, it was stranded colorwork. I am not going to call it Fair Isle. Not letting the Fair Isle Knitting Association come after me, but it was a stranded colorwork on gigantic needles. And as a person who knits, I know for a fact that I can't work effectively, nor can I work quickly on size 25 needles. They're this big. They're like stakes for killing vampires. And to have people knit for 12 hours because they had to knit furiously for all of that time to actually get that challenge done. I don't think it's a healthy way of approaching knitting. I don't think it was good for The cast members all seem like fun, lovely people. Um, but even in the midst of doing the challenge, they complained about it, and I think it was rightfully so that they complained because that technique on those giant needles was, I think, completely inappropriate. And that was one of the things that kind of gave me the impression that whoever designed the challenges doesn't actually knit or crochet for that matter. I think they wanted to do something to show off a newer product that one of the sponsors had was, and I think the yarn was called Rowan Big Big Wool. I don't know if it's a brand new product, but it's a new product to me. I'm aware that they did something called Big Wool, and Big Big Wool is just what it sounds like. It's a bigger version of Big Wool. Like I said, I think the emphasis on speed is another factor that is kind of a turnoff because everything can't be done that quickly. I think it was the second episode where they had to do intarsia, mohair intarsia sweaters. Not one team was able to finish a sweater with two sleeves. All the sweaters, they had to give up somewhere either before they started the second sleeve or as the second sleeve was in process. And when nobody in the competition can complete a challenge you set, that's another symptom of poor game design. You created a game that can't be played. No one can win. I think the next thing for me was that, and I know the show is designed to make money, and I have no objection to that, but there's on top of the poor game design, on top of having people knit in ways that are not actually healthy for their literally their hands and the rest of their bodies, it feels kind of exploitative because Rowan and Wool in the Gang put out kits that are available about 24 hours after the about 24 hours after the episode airs. So if you go to the Rowan website, you'll see kits available for the stranded colorwork vests. If you go to the Wool and the Gang websites, you'll see kits available for the Intarsia sweaters. But they don't credit the designers because these were designed by the contestants in the show. They don't get any credit. They, their first names are mentioned. Okay, so they'll say, oh, this is Holger's sweater, or this is uh so and so's sweater. But their full name is not on the design. They also don't participate in uh any of the revenue from the design, which also feels really kind of exploitative. So now you have people being pushed to work much faster than any knitter would normally knit. Then you've got them working for a really long period of time with bad ergonomics. And then you're profiting off of both their physical labor and their intellectual labor. And it feels like their intellectual property was taken from them. And I know they probably signed contracts that made whatever they produced property of the show. And both Rowan and Will and the Gang said that they contracted with Channel 4 and the production company to have the right to sell those patterns. But I think the designer should be compensated in some way for the work that they put into that design. And finally, my last problem with the show is how they have edited the judges. Now, the judges, the official judges, well, let me tell you the setup. Each week, I guess starting around, I think I noticed it the fourth challenge, they're going to have a guest judge, to contribute information about whatever specialty issue that they're dealing with. So the fourth episode was a crochet episode. So they got in a crochet designer to be a guest judge. Cool. The permanent judges are Di Gilpin and Sheila Greenwell. They have run a company that produces couture knitting and crochet garments, I think, and they sell yarn. They have written a book together called the Gansey Knitting Source Book. They are very, very knowledgeable knitters in particular, with some expertise in crochet, but they are primarily knitters. But that is not really depicted, at least in the first four episodes that I've seen. That's not how they are portrayed in the show at all. They're portrayed as sweet little grannies who like knitting. And I think they are being poorly served by this show. And I think this show wants to create a lot of, well, not a lot, but I think the show wants to create drama where it can, rather than being very informative about what's happening in the show and what's happening with the knitting that's happening, or what's happening with the creation of the items that we're seeing. Because I think it was fun that they had them create things that I don't ordinarily think of people doing. That was kind of cool. And when they have them working in teams, they take away some time, which I think also doesn't serve the knitters and crocheters very well at all. But okay, fine. You have team challenges, interesting team challenges. But then we don't really get a lot of expert information from the expert judges. They're not treated like experts. They're treated like sweet little grannies who will come around and comfort um, someone who's stressed out, or maybe, I don't know, give an attaboy to someone who's doing well. And I just contrasted because I like this type of show. I am an avid Sewing Bee watcher. We just got Sewing Bee here in the States. It's on the Roku channel, and me and my family, we have watched every single episode. We, we had a long running Sewing Bee marathon, and we watched every episode from season one all the way up to season 10, and we are avidly awaiting season 11 on the Roku channel. Cool, cool, cool. But we are introduced to the judges every single episode as experts, and I'm not getting that from a Game of Wool. The judges discuss the challenges in terms of their expertise. Um, let's take Sewing Bee for instance. We have Patrick and Esme. Patrick is a Savile Row tailor, or was a Savile Row tailor. I'm not sure if he's still active in that career. Esme has had a long career in fashion design, and they refer to the different things they've done all the time. Furthermore, we get expert tips and tricks from Patrick and Esme when the contestants are going wrong. Patrick and Esme will discuss, oh, well, so-and-so is doing XYZ, but that creates this problem. Let's see how they're going to solve it. And sure enough, as you watch the sewer continue along the path they are already on, the exact thing that Patrick and Esme said would go wrong, it goes wrong. And then the sewer has to resolve that issue. But we don't get any of that. And that also helps to, to shore up to demonstrate to the watcher the expertise of the judges. Um, and we don't get that on a game of wool. We get them uh, being very gentle and kind. We get them being very, supportive, but we are not getting expertise from them. And it makes me wonder, would they have done the same if it was two male judges? I don't think so. Two male judges would not have been gratified. And I'm gonna die on that hill. Two male judges would not have been gratified. I don't really have much to say about Tom Daly just because he's just the host. He is not a judge on the show. And I think he is doing what the host should do on a show like that. He's being funny, he's being supportive of all of the contestants, and he is just helping move things along. So I don't really have anything really to say about him at all. I just think that the two judges are really being poorly served by how they're being edited because they are filming these things for days at a time. They're getting a lot of footage, and the footage that shows their expertise in knitting and fashion design, um, we're just not getting those clips. So what they've done now, because I think so many people complain particularly about the stranded colorwork episode, they're doing a separate little mini show where they give that information. And I have not watched that yet, but I will try to catch some episodes of it and let you know if that little separate mini show is giving what I feel is a lot of the missing context for a game of wool. Yeah, so I'll take a look at that, and next time I will let you guys know. But if they are editing Di and Sheila differently in the little documentary style, context offering show, my question then is why was the choice made to make them sweet little old ladies rather than expert knitters, authors, business owners? They sell yarn. They do couture fashion shows. I don't understand why they're being made to look this way on this show. And I think it goes back to my original point, that this show is different from Bake Off and uh, Sewing Bee in that I think it's much more controlled by the sponsors. And right now, DMC and what is it? Before I forget the name. DMC, Wool and the Gang, and Rowan are all owned by the same group of venture capitalists. So it's not like people who are involved in the arts, in the fiber arts, are at the helm, so to speak, or have a lot of control over how the show has been made. I think it was made to be put together quickly. It was made to work within a certain budget in terms of time that you have the various um, professionals that you need to actually make the show, to film it, to edit it, all of that. I think they had a very strict budget that they worked on, and the whoever actually makes the decisions about the show had other priorities than the people who are decision makers in something like Bake Off or the Sewing Bee. That's where I am on the show. So do I watch every episode? Yeah, I do. Um, but the more episodes I watch, the more I see this dichotomy that you have people who are more interested in commerce, who are in charge of a show that's really about fiber arts. And it's not a show about fiber arts anymore. It's a show to show specific products, and it's a show to push those products out of the shops and into people's homes. That's why those kits are out there. Is an extractive model because they're taking intellectual property and labor from people who are not being compensated and using that to create revenue for a huge corporation or for a venture capital group, pardon me. And that's where I am on A Game of Wool. Anyway, I think that's it for now. I'm going to get this out. It's going to still be Monday when this video comes out. And I will see you guys in 2 weeks. Thank you and have a great day.